If you would like to work with the documentation part, it's at the end of the top side ribbon bar. It's actually the dimension and the documentation. So if you would like to add any sort of building dimension, you would likely go with these here. These are not the only options. As you can see, there are several options. If you would like to measure the pitch of the roof or something like that, there are tools for that. But now, to keep it simple, if you would like to simply measure the layout of the floor plan that you have created, and you would like to add details for the walls and things like that, you should use the building and all walls tool here. If you click that, this sort of dialog comes up where you can see the possibilities at the top, and there are the executable commands at the bottom. And how it works, by default, this is empty. This is an empty list, and you can just select something, add, and it appears here. And so you can build up an order, and this will be the execution order. So first, the door window details will be measured, and then the endpoints of the walls, and then the main connections. So this way you can actually set up how they are ordered on the dimension string. So if you simply say, okay, now I just keep this because I like this layout, and just say okay, then all you need to do is just to select the full layout with all the walls, and then when you hit enter, the software will recognize the outer boundaries of your design, and then you can just move your mouse somewhere. But if you see something that you like, for example, I like this as a position for my dimensions, then the software will try to get as much detail as possible for these 4 sides, and measure those, and make them appear according to their size. And then you can see these are the connections. Well, actually there are no windows here, so that's why we can't see that value here. But there is this window distance, there is this wall length, there's this this room size, and then there are the breakpoints in the elevation. So this is how it recognizes most of the details. This won't recognize all of the details because, you know, sometimes the building shape can be very complex. You use some sort of specific solution for that specific issue or situation which you faced. So if something is missing, for example, from here, then you can still use this simple tool, the walls tool, and then you can just use the same and just click somewhere, and then you just measure it, and
just
you
measure that one individual.
Yeah, you just place it, or you do the opposite here, and then you just set it up. So this is also something that you can use easily. And then also you can use tools like this is, I think, the simplest measurement tool, the align dimension, which allows you to pick literally any sort of 2 points on your drawing, like this and, for example, this here, and then it literally measures that distance. Now, many times we would like to measure things either vertically or horizontally, at least on the traditional layouts, if it's not angled or something like that. So in that case, I don't want to measure this real distance between the two, but if I right-click, then I can measure its horizontal component, or I can, again, right-click, and then I can measure the vertical component, and then I can just left-click, and I can place this dimension. So even if you measure 2 separate points which are not perpendicular to or vertical or horizontal to each other,
they don't really align, they are shifted in space, then you can just draw the measurement across and decide if you want to have a vertical or a horizontal.
Yeah, you can then this is how I call it. You can force the measurement to horizontal or vertical, even if it was not horizontal or vertical distance between 2 items. Talking about this, there is another very useful tool, which is the serial dimensions, and I will talk about this later when we have the section. And about this, there is another one which is called the serial dimension. Actually, there's the length here, and then you can find the continuous dimensions. This brings you many other possibilities. These you can even use if you are not an architect, but you work for a different profession. But now, as an architect, I'm using this serial dimension, and there's one specific option that I really like to use. This is the virtual intersection, and this if I just enable this option and I click OK, then I can demonstrate how this works. I just pick this point, and then I pick, for example, this point, and then I just place it here. See, now the software automatically measured each and every breakpoint which my line intersected. So you can easily measure details inside your drawing. Now keep that in mind that it will literally intersect everything. So if you measure it here, it will intersect these as well. So
what about
you can control
lines?
that with
not only objects would intersect, but also two-dimensional draft lines, right?
Yes. Actually, this is a line here. This is not an object.
Oh, okay.
This is no object here. These are also no objects here. You just the software simply literally just intersects things, so it makes it easy to use. But also you should keep that in mind that if you don't want to intersect something, then you should at least hide that layer or something before you measure it, and then the software works like that. And there is another tool which is the serial in horizontal and serial in vertical, which I will use soon, so you will see how that works. This is it's quite similar to this, but it works in a different manner.
What about symbols? I see one right over there with the height values. So how do you add objects like this one? Because we so far we've seen during the first show how to add three-dimensional elements, but when it comes to annotations and symbols, that's something that we haven't touched upon yet.
Yeah, well, if we talk about specific symbols for measurement, we should find it in the dimension tool. It's this specifically, it's called the elevation and floor plan. It's a very simple tool to use. Again, you just click on it, and then you need to determine of which object you would like to measure, and then what point of that object you would like to measure. Now, in my case, the object itself will be the wall, and actually this specific point. So first I click to select it, and then I click in this vertical point to select the point which I would like to measure, and then I can decide where either I would like to measure its top point or its bottom point. Or let's just measure the top point, and then the software recognizes the height of this wall, and then I can either keep it or make a correction. Designing an architectural drawing sometimes needs some manual correction. You can do that. But if you designed everything properly and everything is correct, you just keep that value and you say OK, and then you can select the symbol. There's a symbol library where you can select other different symbols, and then you can say OK, and then you just place it somewhere, and then you have this measurement here. So, well, this way you can actually measure. I just touch that here. You can measure the floor height, the ceiling height, and all sort of items you can measure the same way.
What about north symbols?
The north symbol, now that's what I determine as a classic symbol. These are actually groups. When we talk about symbols, 2D groups of 2D items, we really literally translate them into groups. So you will be able to find a group library with several different topics here, different libraries or categories here. And then, for example, if you would like to add the north sign, you just need to go to the signed library, and you should find the north sign for the English designs. And then now, if I just click and drag and release this item here, see, now it's automatically aligned to the project north, and it's simply because the name contains the word north. So the software understands that this is likely a north sign, so I don't even have to rotate it. If I already designed and if I already determined, which I think we covered this topic last time.
How to geolocate your project. That's when we discussed the north direction, and these kind of symbols automatically pick up the north direction that we set up.
Symbols are actually, the groups are actually built up of 2D primitives, we call them. It's the lines, the hatch, the text, and so on. When you select it, they're selected together. They are part of this one single group, and there are some specific settings here. Like, for example, you can force now it's a black color set here, so you can force that color onto the group, and then it will turn into black. So there are some specifics that you can use for these sort of specific groups, and you can place them on a different layer and so on. So these are handled as groups in ARCHLine.
What about other annotational tools? For instance, a location stamp comes to mind when you want to designate the rooms, because the software by itself is unable to designate where one room ends and the other one begins.
Yeah, well, actually the software determines this by just simply clicking into a room. If you use the building and there is the room and area and room by walls, this is one of the simplest options and quickest option. If I move my mouse here, it's having this exclamation mark. This means it cannot recognize a closed boundary here, which is true. If I move my mouse inside the room, then it turns into a web like this, and then you can just select any of these here, and then you just click here, and then it turns into a room with a label and all sorts of information automatically measured. Now this is what we call a room and area with the room and area tool, and now it comes with several norms that you can select based on your location, which is mostly accepted. You can change the limits and values here. Now this is one important thing. Here you can change the room name. This should be, for example, I think this is for example, office room. And then I just say it's okay. So now you can even turn on or off the flooring. I mean, whether it's represented in text or something, and then the software automatically measures this thing here. Now, if you measure something that has no walls around, like a terrace or something else, then you can use this room by polygon. And in this case, you just literally click on the boundaries of that, for example, terrace, and then you just say, okay, enter, close it, and then you just place another contour if you would like to add some sort of something that you would like to exclude.
Yes.
And you can set up a height if that's important. Now in this case it's not that much important, so I just keep it on default, and then it again turns into a room which you can rename to, for example, terrace or something like that. If the text falls into the wrong place like this, you can at any time move it and place it somewhere else.
Perfect. We'll return to these data fields when we are going to get some quantity takeoffs. But now let's look at sections and elevations, because that's
yes.
a very hot topic.
Before we do that, there's one more thing that I like to highlight here, because that comes sometimes as a question. If you would like to change the style of the text here, that's an interesting and important thing here, that you can change it here in the properties. As you can see, it comes with styles. So here you cannot set up the details of the text settings, but you can select a predefined style that you already created. So if I go here, we will use this text tool soon. If you go here and use the text tool, these are the styles built in the program, and these are the blue ones are the styles that I have created. So you can actually use either the built-in text styles, or you can create new text styles, and then you can.
This actually applies to everything in the software. You can work with the styles that we have shipped with the software, but you're obviously urged to make your own.